Are mai rā, koutou e ngā manu mō I o te ao Kaiako ki tō ore matutu Aotearoa e.
E a te manu I rere mai I ngā ranga iwi o te motu. Ko te rire toro, tā kiri te ata, kore I te manu. Ko te kākā, te manu I rere mai I ngā taumata kōrero. Ara kore I te manu, kāore kā tino Aotea. Ara ko te pi toi toi I rere mai I runga I ngā maunga waka I. Kōriri tākiri te ata kāore ka tino Aotea. E tatari atu wana mo te wanaketanga o te ao Aotea. Ki ngā manu I roti I te kaukauoro. Te kaukauoro e umai nei a tātou. Ara mai rā, e ngā iwi o te motu nei e raukura rā tēnei. E raukura tu hikitea, e raukura tu apainga. E raukura I wātoro atu rā ki koutou, ki roto I ngā kura. Kura auraki, kura kaupapa, ngā kura wānanga katoa, hora pātu rā ki te motu nei. Ara tēnei te mihi atu rā ki koutou, kei ngā manu. E kapa mai nei ki roto I tēnei kātū ko anga. Ara o ki atu anō ki tēnā ko ke kōrero. Ara ko te manu e te mutima atu rā ki ngā kai roto I te wao kū. Anō nā te ngā ere. O te anō rā, ko te manu e kapa atu rā ki te kā ui ao. Ara, nō nā te mata ura kōrero. Ara kei ngā manu kōrero, kei ngā manu e kapa mai nei. Tau mai ki te matatū, tau mai ki te tū mata ora, ti hei mauri ora.
My name's Leslie Hoskin. I'm the Chief Executive at the Teaching Council, and it is my great pleasure to be with you this evening. I wanted also to introduce you to Tamahaurau, Tātai Heke Māori, and he's one of our Deputy Chief Executives here at the Teaching Council. This evening is about giving you the opportunity to explore what the possibilities are to create leadership, capabilities, grow leaders within the education system, but in the context of Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'm going to hand over to Nicola Ngārewa, who is our board chair. And before I do that, allow me to genuinely say thank you. Thank you for giving us your time this evening and being interested in this space of Rauhuia. Ngā mihi.
Ka nui te mahi mahana ki a koutou katoa. Ko Nicola Ngārewa au no Ngāti Rurui me Ngā Rauru. Ko au te tumu ake o tēnei kura, te kura tuaroa o ngā motu ki Taranaki. Me te turu o te poare o te matatua Aotearoa. Nau mai haere mai ki tēnei kaupapa, ara ko te Rauhuia. Kia ora koutou, I'm Nicola Ngārewa. I affiliate to Ngāti Rurui e Ngā Rauru. I'm very proud to be the principal here at Spotswood College in New Plymouth, Taranaki, and also the chair of the Governing Council for the Teaching Council of Aotearoa, New Zealand. A warm welcome and thank you for joining us. I would like to start off by acknowledging the leadership that is here today. Leaders of our young people, leaders of your classroom spaces, leaders of your spaces within early childhood, within secondary settings, within primary settings, within kura, within wharekura, in fact, leaders of kura, wharekura, early childhood centres, and also of secondary settings, leaders of our whānau and leaders of our communities. It would be fair to say that we collectively absolutely are shakers, movers, we're the designers, we're the creators, we are the stalwarts of society. And what a privilege that is, but also very importantly, what a collective golden opportunity that is. That is for us, for our young people, for our communities, for our hapu, for our iwi, for our whānau. Te Rauhuia has had significant input from a diverse range of amazing leaders throughout our country. And we can be really proud and confident that it is Indigenous and innovative in design, it is big and bold in nature, it is agile and absolutely responsive, but really importantly, that it is a koha. It is a koha by the profession, for the profession, to assist and to make sure that we grow leadership capabilities for everybody. However, we are an exciting part of this journey that Te Rauhuia, or the feather of the huia bird, is ready to take flight. But in order to do that, it absolutely needs your courage, it needs your input, it needs your passion, it needs your direction to help us navigate what the next phase of this journey would look like. So I warmly encourage you and I respectfully challenge you to come on this journey to Rauhuia. What is the next phase going to be like for us, for our profession, for our whānau, for our communities, for society? Kia ora.
We're really placing the context of New Zealand, Aotearoa New Zealand, front and centre of the thinking. So what I want to do is to remind you that the leadership strategy and the capabilities framework are there for your use, that the work we're now doing is helping you to rethink or to frame how to grow leadership using the strategy and capabilities framework. The invitation is to think about mana in a way that you would be a leader in the setting that you are working in. We have created some resources to help you start your thinking. Nothing's finished, nothing's completed in a way that says we've got one of these and here it is. So where you come in now is to take some of these starting points and to add to them, to make them your own. And so you might do that by joining a group on hapori matatu. You might do that by getting together with some of your colleagues. There's all kinds of ways you might think about this. But we're going to create some opportunities for you, and we really invite you to lead in your space as well, to identify who you are, where you work, and who else has a vested interest in the success of our kids in your area. Because joining up and being collaborative and working with others is going to make one of the biggest differences in how we do leadership in education. The important thing I wanted to say right up front is that we are not tweaking this system of education at the edges. We're not adding onto it. We need to sign up, and the invitation for you is to participate in what that might look like tonight, but actually we need to sign up to create something new, to really say, what will it take to have every teacher, every education leader in early childhood, primary and secondary, able to lead confidently, grow their leadership skills on a day-to-day basis. So that's kind of the task at hand. This work has been ongoing for some time. And I know for many of you, and I probably get asked this question more than anything, when do we get to do something? When do we get to actually go to a course or get a mentor or do a module or go to something? And I understand that's urgent. But what's really important in this work is that we take the opportunity to create something new and we create it for the long term, to ensure that this is really going to make a significant difference into your ability to lead our kids in this country. So to that end, we thought it might be helpful to remind you of some of the work that has been done in the past few years, but also some of the people that have led that work, because this is 100% by the profession for the profession. And so I'm going to start by introducing you to Ripeka Lessels, who's one of our board members, and also Francis Nelson, who was the convener of the Centre of Excellence for Leadership.
I recall when we had our very first national hui for Māori medium, and that room was full of experts in the field, really. Clearly we could see that there wasn't a education leadership strategy across the sector, across the profession. And I remember thinking and feeling, what a daunting task this is going to be, to try and put together some sort of coherent strategy that will have an impact across the whole of the profession, every sector in the profession, that is transferable to all of those sectors, it is relevant to all of those sectors, is able to pull together components of leadership in differing cultures, places. What was that going to look like? And I did remember thinking, oh my goodness, what's the first thing I would do?
I have really, really strong recollections about the academic forum. It started where we know it needs to from an academic and a research base, and that then was taken through to a range of different fora, the professional forum where people from the sector, early childhood through to tertiary, anybody who had a view and an opinion to give and a critique to make was invited to do that.
And I guess that's where the hui Māori came from was, we can't do this on our own. We really need people in the whole of the sector, the whole of the profession in every sector to come together to begin to formulate what do we think about this and understand that all of their views and all of their thinking is so relevant to be able to kind of put together this leadership strategy.
It sounded to me as if it was going to be a very different approach. For example, the first think pieces I think that I became aware of were from Mason Jury. The whole kind of ethos said to me that this is actually more about the people than the actual role, and I think that that's a really good place to start. Before you get a role, you are still a person who has leadership capabilities, leadership knowledge and understanding that maybe is underutilised. That was probably the most powerful thing in that.
That leaders were probably everywhere, but how are we going to identify, I guess, what leadership looked like across the whole sector?
Education is a mover of thinking. It's a transformer of views. It's an opportunity to develop things that are really important, and I think that to act in partnership, in a real partnership, not a lip service partnership, but to make sure that everything that we do needs to enable both Māori and non-Māori to see how we need to work together to get the best out of our bicultural country. People will say we are a multicultural country, and we are. However, our roots actually firmly sit in the Treaty of Waitangi. And so I think that in itself is something that we have never done in this way before. And its time is now, and we have the opportunity to take that forward in a really positive way to bring about some change.
The stage we're at now will be a place where all of those in the profession, and I know they will, because I know the Māori medium will, they will begin to look at it, and they're going to pull it apart. They're going to want to dissect it, and they're going to want to ask questions about different parts of the strategy. That's what they do. But I think, the way in which the council has taken their time to do this over conversations, there will be a good space for us to begin the next phase. And I've often spoken with the people in the profession who are expecting that this strategy will come with a building, a space. I don't particularly see that. I believe that the strategy shouldn't be confined to four walls. It is a tuapapa, a foundation for the profession to then begin to build whatever that whare looks like, using what we've been able to put together in Te Rauhuia as a model.
I actually got a master's degree in educational administration in the 90s, and school doesn't look like that anymore. And so I can't look like that anymore. And so you can't rest on your laurels. It's a growing thing. It changes all the time, and we need to be able to adapt and respond with it. That's my real wish for people to pick this up and be involved. Don't wait for someone to do it for you or with you or to you. Be part of it. Be part of making it happen. Yeah.
The journey won't work if we have to walk alone.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Tēnā ka aro atu ki te ware o tāne mata raukiri e tū. Ko tōna teko, ko te Kaiako. Ko ōna maihi, ara ko te tangata tiriti, ko te tangata whenua. Ko ōna paupau, ko ōna pātū, ara ko ngā Kaiako katoa. Me tā rātou tuakiri. Nō reira tēnā koutou nau mai
haramai. Who is this for? It is for you. Who is this for? This is for teachers. This is for leaders. This is for you all in our profession. I'd just like to pay attention to the tapestry, the carvings, the ability to draw from the walls of the house. I like also to start from the top, and the teko that sits at the very top of the house demonstrates, illustrates teachers. Not only teachers, it demonstrates and illustrates the learners. Ako. One gable of the house, it shows tangata tiriti. The other gable of the house, it shows mana whenua and tangata whenua. This here is about relationships. I'd like to take you inside the house. And inside the house, I'd like to share with you the pātū o te ware. And the pātū o te ware is each panel and what it represents. Again, the first panel, it represents mana whenua and tangata whenua. Do we know what that is? Do we understand what kind of relationships we need to have in our communities with mana whenua and tangata whenua? We understand that that's going to be a complicated thing at times, but we are willing to help and support on how to do that. Next to it is another panel, and that panel shows us around bicultural. And in the bicultural is how do we have relationships that reflect the two gables that I had mentioned before, our treaty arrangements, what it is to be treaty-led and values-based. On the other side of that panel is Tangata Pacifica. We have a beautiful designed panel that shows us in its patterns identity from the Pacific. One of those is a weave, which talks about the mat. The other one looks at the sea, and the other one is birds. That panel there talks about multi-Pacifica. What's multi-Pacifica? Is that every Pacific person, every Pacific teacher, every Pacific learner in New Zealand has identity. And in that identity that they belong. They belong in the house of the profession. They belong in the house of Matatu Aotearoa. The other panel, the last panel, is multicultural. That no matter where you come from, if you've just arrived as a teacher into New Zealand, you have a place in this house. You belong. If you've been in New Zealand for generations, you belong. That this panel here illustrates that you have place on the wall of your house. All these panels show us that we all have responsibility. All these panels show us that you have mana. And that mana of the teachers is really important because we're here for the mana of the learner. Because we're here in regards to the mana of communities. And when I mean communities, I'm talking about iwi. When I mean communities, I'm talking about communities of learning. When I'm talking about communities, that it links into all the different groups within your town, within your city, within your suburb, that you belong. We have a vital place, position, responsibility within learning in our communities. This house here also has values. One pillar of the house is pono. The other pillar of the house is whanaungatanga. Then there's whakamana, And the last pillar is manaakitanga. These 4 pillars help us understand how we should behave in this house, how we should share our learnings in this house. Most importantly, how we enhance and take responsibility of the mana of each individual that sits and represented on that wall of identity. There's another panel that sits on this wall of identity, and it's called the panel of individual and collective wellness. There are 6 elements that sit on this. All those elements are aligned to te whare tapawha that was brought to light by Sir Mason Jury. It went on in the Meihana model to add another 2 elements. But the 6 elements starts with whānau, families. The second one, hininaro, mental and emotional. Third one, wairua, spirituality. Fourth one, tinana, the physical. The 2 added ones, taiao, environment. The environment which you or the person that you are dealing with, what kind of environment are they in? The 6th one, ngā tangata katoa, societal. What does that mean? How they sit in the communities. Our role as teachers in community. Our role as the profession in communities. That wellness panel is reflective of individual and collective wellness. This is the wall of your house.
I hope you enjoyed that. The next person who's going to share some thinking with us is the Honourable Chris Hipkins, Minister of Education. And he's going to share his vision of what education leadership could look like in this country.
Ena mana, ena reo, ena raurangatira mā tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I want to talk particularly about the idea of strong leaders and strong leadership. Because we've seen around the world strong leaders who try and direct, who try and command, haven't had the same degree of sway as those leaders who walk alongside people and enlist people into the cause. And really, I think the reason I mention that in the context that we're in today is that's a fantastic metaphor for leadership in education. Simply commanding somebody generally doesn't produce a particularly good outcome, but walking alongside them can inspire them, it can change their life. And you see that in schools and classrooms and early childhood centres up and down the country, and I see it all of the time when I go and visit. I see leaders and leaders amongst leaders. So we see in the classroom, every teacher is a leader in their classroom, a leader of learning. But within schools, there are then leaders amongst leaders. And I've had the occasion, I guess, over the last 3 years to reflect quite a lot on the difference between schools that are thriving and schools that are struggling. And a lot of that comes down to leadership amongst leadership. And it comes down to the overall approach to leadership. And the transformative leaders are those who create a positive and enabling environment where everybody can flourish, rather than those who simply direct and command. Because education just simply doesn't work that way. One of the transformative pieces of reading for me, and it was not long before I became Minister of Education, was a book by someone who I have enormous respect for, well-being's, Disobedient Teaching. One of the lines that really resonated with me, and I'll paraphrase because I can't remember it exactly, was it sort of went along the lines of you can stand back and wait for conditions to improve, or you can just get in and make it happen. And the teachers who I think really transform things are the ones who just get in and make things happen. And the school leaders, the leaders amongst leaders, who create the environment in which that is allowed to happen, are the ones that create those really positive learning cultures that matter so much. So leadership in an educational context, and a leadership centre in an educational context, is not going to be a building. It's not going to be a place. It's going to be a culture and a network of expertise that people can draw on and draw from. And I think we've got a really exciting opportunity to do something quite different to what we might have done in the past, to create an environment where leadership can be celebrated, where leadership expertise can be shared, and where we can develop emerging leaders so that they can be the very best that they possibly can be. And that inherently is what the teaching process is all about. And so we've got a quite exciting chance here, I think, to build something that's uniquely New Zealand, that draws on the best of what New Zealand has to offer, and that actually will be incredibly transformative for our whole education system and for all of the people who go through it. So I'm excited to be here. I was excited by the leadership strategy, and I'm particularly excited by this next step along that journey towards making sure that we are really creating and maintaining the sort of education system that New Zealanders deserve to have access to. So can I acknowledge all of the leaders in the room? There are so many familiar faces here. All of you will have contributed to this journey in one way or the other, and I'm sure that you'll continue to do so. The hard work really starts now, doesn't it? And so thank you for the contribution that you have made, and all strength to you for the contribution that you are about to make. So, nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Rauhuia, it's a symbol of how we look at nature that guides us in the context of today. Unfortunately, in areas of education, we've forgotten this connection between us and nature, us and environment, and the community driving as a community. So the rauhuia, aligned to the huia bird, this specific bird is utilised in Māoridom as a treasure. And we have examples of that, and the beautiful example is that when you go down to the National Library in Wellington, there's a huge big picture up there of Te Rangi Topiora with 4 feathers in her hair, reaching out to sign the Treaty of Waitangi. How could you not look at that as an example of one, a wahine, 2, of leadership at an 1840 that helps guide us in our thinking in today. Right next to her is another chief, Eruwera Patuone. So that gives balance. Not only does it give balance, it says to us there's roles to play within our community, and these roles need to be brought to life at every level, every sector of a community. Not just in your role-based hierarchical leadership, but leadership in the classroom.
So I hope you can see that inside our house, inside your house, there is a place for everyone. One of the things I heard a lot was that people assumed that they would be coming to a building in Wellington to learn how to be a leader. And so this is our phrase that this leadership work is not at place. It's about creating a space where you are, where you lead, working out who you lead with in that space. Now, obviously, we need to connect with others, and there will be a national perspective as well as a local. And by local, I don't just mean geographically, I mean where there's common interest, because that's where leadership's sharing and growing will really start to grow legs. So I wanted to share with you now a framework, a Te Ao Māori framework. We are unashamedly really pushing in to learn how do we take the ideas and concepts of leadership in Te Ao Māori, in a Māori worldview, and use them. And the first one I wanted to share with you was a framework called kawa, tikanga, and kaupapa. And quite simply, our kawa are those things that are non-negotiables, the things that we all have to sign up for as a leader in this education system in New Zealand. Those give us a system view, so they'll connect us at the system, regardless of where you are in your space leading. The things, by example, that are sitting in the kawa, our non-negotiables, are values. The values in the teaching profession, the 4 of them that you can see there. We also have our leadership strategy, and it's really important we keep coming back to that because that is the work that was done by the profession to describe what leadership needed to look like. That's not to say that as we learn our way forward there might not need to be some changes. There absolutely are, and I would say the best example of that at the moment is we need to more visibly incorporate wellness into this strategy. The other things that sit in there are our capabilities framework. So you will probably have seen that before. There are 9 capabilities of leadership listed, and there are 3 settings or spheres of leadership. Whether you're leading an organisation, whether you're leading a team, or whether you're leading teaching and learning curriculum. So those are our non-negotiables. And you've heard Tamaho talk about how mana sits at the heart of all leaders, all leadership capability. And so we've also named that as one of our non-negotiables. Let's really push into that, learn about it and understand it. The tikanga, sitting in there, this is where you really, and the invitation for you genuinely at the moment is, what does it mean for you in your space where you lead, in your space where you live? What does it mean for you, for example, if you were a maths teacher? How do you connect with other maths teachers and share that learning? How do you work geographically, locally, with those who live and work in the space that you do? And our kaupapa is genuinely the work that needs to be done to shift how we see leadership and things that are done in that space today to this new vision of Rauhuia. And so I don't want to miss acknowledging that where we are today is not the things that we're talking about now. What we're talking about is creating something for the future, something for the near future. And so I do really encourage you to work within that tikanga space to define what do you need to be able to lead more effectively in your space.
And it talks about the huia, although it's no longer here, it spiritually has the ability to guide us in the now, that we're connected to spirituality. And that's something that we need to work on, that we bring belief systems into what leadership is. The second area is the tui. And we know that the tui is a beautiful sound that draws your ear to wherever it is. And that tui is around also how do we knit together all the different weaves and fabrics and the differences within our community. And that tui tells us that we have to work at bringing things together. Then we also talk about the pipi wharaurua. And the pipi wharaurua actually is an indicator around wellness. And wellness is a huge part of our leadership pathway. The fourth area is the kawekawea. And these are our little birds that have these big sounds that say to us, we're heralding the next months that are coming, the warmer months. So how do we prepare for the warmer months to come? What it also says is that these birds represent different things in different sectors of New Zealand, Aotearoa. And that leadership is different in different parts of Aotearoa. That there are subtle differences on how people will drive within their communities what leadership looks like. And we need to bring that out. We need to make it vivid, we need to highlight it, and we need to show our communities and our learners that you can be a leader, no matter where you are.
But in addition to identify the gaps that exist in the system and find a way to fill them in a really authentic and genuine way that works for those who are doing the job.
So what's next? Something I know for sure is that the people who have the solutions to what's needed in leadership in this space is you, the people who are doing the job. And so we really, really do want to make sure every single teacher, every single education leader has the opportunity to participate in defining what should be available and what that looks like. So using the leadership strategy, and I do encourage you to read it, it's inspiring. Using the capabilities framework to remind yourself of what are those 9 capabilities. How do you think we should grow those capabilities into every single teacher and education leader in this country? That's the invitation. You might be an early childhood teacher and you might have really clear ideas of what you need to support you to grow those capabilities. And we want to hear from you. So we're going to organise some groups on hapori matatu, chat groups that you can participate in. You might want to create your own and invite others to join you in a conversation. However you want to do it, email us, phone us, invite us to your space. We really do need to hear from you to make sure what we're doing is going to meet your need. So as you can see, we're describing leadership as the need to partnership, to network, to work with others to lead. Everyone has a role to play. And so the question that I'd like to ask you now is, who are those people for you? Who do you need to connect with? Who do you need to support? And who do you need support from? And I want you to think more broadly than just in the education space, although we can of course help connect you with those in education. But who are the leaders in the community? For example, the dairy owner. What relationship do they have with your students? What about the kuia down the road who organises to look after kids? What does she know and how do you join up with her? What we're all really interested in, of course, is the success for our kids and our mokopuna to come. And that will take all of us to contribute to. And so my invitation is to connect with others, to ask for help. How do you connect with iwi if you haven't got that relationship? And we really want to be someone who, at the Teaching Council, can introduce you to others. So please, in your work, as you start to think about what do you need to be a successful leader in education, think about who else you need to work with.
E wake iki noa. There is absolute strength in unity. Like I will be here at Spotswood College with my colleagues and with my whānau in Taranaki and Waira, we encourage you to take up the challenge of having these conversations, of keeping connected. Go onto our Teaching Council website, keep us informed, because actually, like I said in Wake Iki Noa, there is strength in unity, and together, what an amazing opportunity for system shift for our profession, for our akunga, for our whānau this is. Nō reira kia koutou katoa, anō, ka nui te mahi aroha, ka nui te mahi mahana.
For us and the Teaching Council, what I'd like to say to every teacher, to every person who's connected to every teacher, this is your house. And it's our shared house. It has some non-negotiables. It has some things in there we want you to help build. That our house stands strong with your participation. And that's a part of a journey, not a one-off. So I invite every teacher to make comment, to contribute to the building, to the tukutukus of the house, to the tahuhu, to the pou, to these pillars that are already there. Come up and touch it. Come up and make it more defined with your touch. Because that's what makes it our house.
Te mata tutu mata ora, tuia ki te rangi, nei nā te tua papa, te pono manakitanga, wanangatanga, wakamana i te ako e.